Let's go ahead. I'm going to add an ID selector. And ID selectors start with what's called a pound sign, or as you guys know, is a hashtag. This is going to signify that it's an ID. The rule for IDs is they're used one time per HTML page. So when you're defining an ID, you're thinking about larger sections of your page to use these on. So this will be, I'll use this maybe on the about part of my page. So I'll put it on there. So I'm going to go grab some code really quick from W3 Schools to kind of show you some stuff here. Okay, so let's close the editor. We're going to go to W3 Schools right here. The home gives us some cool examples. Obviously, as you go down here, we've got syntax we talked about. We talked about selectors, so we can come back here and review here. So type selectors, ID class. Some how-to stuff, which is kind of cool. They do a lot of how-to, like, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? Fun things like that. Height, width, box models a little more as we get into CSS a little bit more. So let's go take a look at this, some of the CSS advanced stuff. So I'm going to add some of this stuff to my about ID, some rounded corners. So it gives you some examples of rounded corners, which are kind of cool, with background colors, no background color, existing or an image as a background color. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this code for rounded corners too. I'm going to go ahead and add that in over here to brackets. So Control C to copy, Control V to paste, or Command C, Command V on your Mac. So go ahead and add these things. So I'm building a box, as you see. So the border radius is what's making it the rounded corners. I can do multiple border radiuses if I wanted different radiuses on each corner too. So that's a little bit more advanced too. You can mess around with that. Look at some stuff on that. Padding is actually inside the border. The width is actually 200 pixels. So rule of thumb is about 72 pixels is about an inch when you're working with pixels. We can work with percentages. We can work with EMs. There's a bunch of units for measurement. Usually, if you're looking at something being responsive, you're not going to usually use like a fixed pixel because you want things to resize depending on their window sizes. So as you learn about web and move forward with it, you'll notice a lot of this stuff is working on percentages too, because it wants everything to resize because everyone's using different devices now. Most of us are using phones, laptops, tablets, whatever it may be. So we want to make sure that our everything looks good in all the different devices. Okay, so we've got this fun thing right here. So now, what about this ID is that the ID doesn't do anything until I tell it where to be used at. So the ID just kind of sits here until I go into my HTML and I assign it to an area in my HTML, unlike the type selectors. So the type selectors are automatically applied. I don't have to do anything extra. I can just type body and it's going to be applied because there's a body tag in there. And as long as there's an H1 tag in there, then the properties will be applied to any H1 tags. But the IDs don't work that way, and neither do the classes. So the classes are different too in that manner. So let's make a class, let's say, called link. And so classes start with just a dot, and then I'm going to call it dot link. And then I'm just going to do a color for this one. Okay, so I'm just going to use, I don't know, crimson. Let's go with that. Okay, so I've got a type, ID selector, class selector. I've got some different properties I'm dealing with. So look at the drop box for the activity and read the instructions on what I'm asking you to do. So you guys are going to do at least 5 different items in your CSS with different properties in each one. So go and explore and have some fun. Don't just copy mine. Be creative and see what you can do on yours. Okay. So we've got these items, but let's see. We got to make it work with our HTML. So how do we do that? So let's go back to our HTML, and what I'm going to do is inside this head section. So remember we talked about this head section kind of being a little bit hidden. We've got a title tag, which is actually in the browser tab. The meta character set tag is in there, so setting the character set to be UTF-8. That was kind of important when we did our validation too. That came in. So all I got to do is add a link line in here. So I'm going to link this to, and with a relationship of style sheet. So I want it to be a style sheet, and then I'm going to href link it to the CSS file, and then I'm going to close this right here. So notice this is red right now because I haven't put a closing angle bracket right there. So this is the nice color coding that's been offered to me. Also notice right here I have little asterisks next to these file names because that means I have not saved them since I've been editing them. So remember Control S or File Save or Command S will save these. So let's just save these really quick. Okay, so I have a link line right now, right? So let's take a look at what it looks like so far. See what we get. So this little lightning bolt is what I clicked on, and it opens it up in whatever browser in here. Okay, so we've got some things going on. I've got a text align center for my H1, which looks kind of nice. It's a white on a pink. I've got some dark blue text that I set in here. This doesn't look crimson, probably because I've visited Google is what happens. So the visited link becomes purple. Excuse me. Yeah, so the visited link is purple. So let's see if I can change that really quick and do like, let's add CSULB in here. Add that, and then we can save that. And then I already have it open, so I can just hit the refresh here. What did I do? Oh, I know why. The link doesn't work because I didn't apply the class. Okay, so the link thing doesn't work because I have to go apply a class inside the link. So this is how a good example of your applying a class. So I'm going to say class equals, and then in quotes is going to be link. Okay, so remember by default our links are blue because there's a browser style sheet. So when we first did our HTML, we didn't do styles, so we had default white background, black text, links are blue, and visited links are purple. So those are default stuff. So let's save this and then take a look at it real quick. And now we have our crimson color right there. Okay. All right, so we have everything except for the ID being applied right now. So I'm going to go ahead and put the ID. And remember, IDs are usually for larger sections. So usually when you're defining a larger section, you're going to use what's called a div tag. So let's go ahead and use a div tag right here. So we're going to do an open div, and then ID equals. And this one was called about. And then notice I don't have to put a pound sign or a period in front of it to signify that as a class or ID. I'm actually using letters and words to tell it what it is. Okay, ID equals about. If I reference ID equals about and in my CSS I put a dot about, then obviously that's not going to work because about is a class because I'm using a period in front of it. So HTML is going to allow me to type it in here. I'm not going to have any errors, but it's not going to work. So it gives me an ending div because that's what brackets likes to do. It likes to end stuff for me. So what I'm going to do is surround the area. So I'm going to put all these items in here, these list items in here. So let's add that in there. So go ahead and save it. Okay, so now we have this right here. Let's get it. Okay, so it's all refreshed. Okay, so you can see I built a little container around my items. It has a fixed width and a fixed height. I may want to change the height in here because I've got all this extra space that I don't need. So I can change that in my CSS. So I can go to my CSS right here, and it's giving me a height of 150. So maybe I want to do 100. So let's see what that looks like. All right, so that looks a little better. So it's a little more centered. So that's looking good right there. That looks pretty cool. All right, so this kind of gives you just a starter on how to do this. So once I'm done with this, you guys will do more and have you know, some more interesting things to do. I'll take you back here really quick to W3 Schools. So if you come down here to the bottom, there's a whole reference section on here on every property that exists in CSS and giving you examples of each one. So there's so many different things you can do with CSS. It's alphabetized. We've got borders, we've got color, we've got columns, we've got, you know, all kinds of stuff in here. And of course, all your little examples in here as you're going back through all of the different items. So all the properties are here. They're all referenced in here. If I go back a page, it goes back to this last example that I clicked on. So there's a lot of cool stuff on here. Gradient, shadow. This is all the advanced CSS, which is a lot of fun stuff, like CSS3 stuff. So as you click through here, you'll understand how it works and get more fun ideas, so you can have fun with it for sure. Do a little bit more. Always good to practice. You guys have time. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's post this so you guys understand again how to post it live. So I'm using FileZilla. You guys have the instructions for your host and everything you need to plug in, your username and password. Go ahead and do. Oh, geez, that's very loud. Excuse me. Let's see if I do it here. Okay. All right, we got that one connected. So remember, everything needs to go into htdocs. Okay, so find htdocs here. So I can add a bunch of folders. I think I added, I don't remember if I added the, yeah, I did. I added the 105 web in here. So I have the 105 web already. So if we go ahead and pull it up in our browser, take a look at that. So we'll go to csulb.edu /tilde. And then remember, yours is going to be your student ID. Mine is my username. And then I did, let's look at it one more time. So I got to make sure I match the folder name, right? It's 105 web. And I use an uppercase W, which I don't normally do. So I need to make sure that I put that in too. So then let's go back to FileZilla here. And then I'm going to go ahead and find on my desktop, I got the 105 web here. And let's see. Let's see what the easiest way to do this is. All right, so I'm going to go back here. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to my user directory because I'm going to drag the whole folder in. And I'll show you why. No, actually I'm not. Okay, let's just open 105 web. We'll open htdocs and we'll open 105 web here. And then I didn't change 105 web, so I'm not gonna, I didn't change this index file. You can tell by the date, so I'm not gonna drag it all over. So I only did, this is my newest stuff with my newest folder in here. So I'm gonna drag this whole folder over here. So by dragging the whole folder over, ooh, that's loud. It allows me to put both files that are in the folder over at the same time. Okay. So now what we'll do here is, notice that there's another folder name, so I have to put CSS here. And then I have the page with the new CSS that I put on there. So this kind of gives you an idea how you can use multiple folders to experiment with different things. Some students had asked me about that too because I hadn't graded the HTML assignment yet. So they wanted to go and experiment with stuff. So as long as you're putting stuff in different folders, you can do all kinds of fun stuff and add whatever you want to it. So when you're done, you will give me the live link. So you'll upload that to the Dropbox, and then you will upload your CSS file that you've created. Okay, so I hope this helps. And then if you guys have any questions, of course, feel free to email me, and we can set up Zoom meetings. We can set up whatever we need to do to get you moving and grooving. So, all right.